Fear of the coronavirus is leading nations, from the U.S. to much of Europe and Latin America, to close up and shield their citizens from the spreading outbreak. That meant shutting borders, airports, seaports and, in France, its iconic cafes and restaurants. Spain and Libya declared emergencies. Italy had 175 new deaths, pushing its total to 1,441. U.S. President Donald Trump tested negative for the coronavirus, as he extended travel bans to the UK and Ireland. New York City reported its first fatality.
Subscribe to a daily update on the virus from Bloomberg's prognosis team here.
Click VRUS on the terminal for news and data on the coronavirus and here for maps and charts. For analysis of the impact from Bloomberg Economics, click here. To see the impact on oil and commodities demand, click here.
The wife of Spain's Prime Minister, Begoña Gómez, has tested positive for the coronavirus, the government in Madrid said in a statement.
Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez earlier Saturday declared a state of emergency for 15 days, significantly limiting mobility, as the government seeks to stop the outbreak.
President Donald Trump has tested negative for the coronavirus, the White House doctor, Sean Conley, said in a statement.
Trump was tested late Friday, after a discussion with his doctor, Conley said. The results were received on Saturday.
1 week after having dinner with a delegation from Brazil at his Mar-a-Lago resort, the president remains symptom-free, Conley said.
A close aide to President Jair Bolsonaro was photographed standing next to Trump, and later tested positive for the virus. Bolsonaro has also been tested, the results came back negative for the virus.
New York hospitals are developing emergency plans to make rooms and resources available for a surge in cases that's expected to place historic pressure on the region's healthcare system.
New York Presbyterian's 13 hospitals and New York City's public hospitals announced they would end elective surgeries, a move likely to be followed by others. Tents appeared in parking lots of medical facilities to triage lower-risk patients, and laboratories and hospitals were finally ramping up their ability to test people with symptoms.
NY hospitals pitch tents, nix surgeries.
The UK government is in talks with private health care providers to get them to release beds for the National Health Service if necessary. Prime Minister Boris Johnson urged companies to increase the production of ventilators and promised to buy them for the NHS.
Seattle reported an 18% jump in infections, to 388, with 3 new deaths, pushing the total to 35, the King County Health Department said. Of the fatalities, 27 are associated with a nursing home in Kirkland, the department said.
Libya closed schools for 2 weeks and airports, seaports and border crossing for 3 weeks as part of an emergency declaration to fight the outbreak, the Prime Minister said.
Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj said $370 million has been set aside to fight the illness.
The volume of air travelers in the U.S. has tumbled at least 30% with steeper declines at some airports, a Transportation Security Administration official said on a telephone briefing about new restrictions aimed at Europe.
Travel from 26 European nations, sharply restricted as of midnight, will probably decline from the 50,000 arrivals recorded Thursday and Friday as people rushed to beat a midnight ban, officials said. The Trump administration has added the UK and Ireland, effective Monday, citing a rise in cases. UK deaths have almost doubled.
U.S. officials are adding contract medical workers at 13 airports to screen Americans coming home from Europe. Non-U.S. citizens will be denied entry and sent back, officials said.
The UK in 2018 accounted for 4.7 million visitors to the U.S. who spent $15.7 billion, the U.S. Travel Association said. The federal government needs to take aggressive steps to support travel-related jobs, the group said.
Amtrak is temporarily suspending or reducing service, mostly on the East Coast, as demand drops.
The railroad will cut about a third of daily service from Boston to Washington and run trains on a Saturday schedule through March 29. Keystone service in Pennsylvania will run a Saturday schedule every day. 2 trains to Canada will only operate in New York State. Spaniards' freedom of movement will be significantly limited for the next 15 days under the state of emergency declared by Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez.
The Spanish government will take full control of administration nationwide, Sanchez said in an address. People will only be allowed to leave their houses in specific circumstances, he said.
Ronna Romney McDaniel, chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, has been tested for the coronavirus after experiencing fever and flu-like symptoms.
She went to her local hospital in Michigan for treatment, RNC Communications Director Michael Ahrens said in a statement posted on Twitter. McDaniel has been blaming Democrats for using the virus as a way to spread panic and undermine President Trump.
France is shuttering restaurants, cafes and shops deemed non-essential, following in the footsteps of neighboring Italy to curb the new coronavirus's spread.
Too many people still go to cafes and restaurants, French Prime Minister Édouard Philippe said at a press conference in Paris on Saturday. Philippe, we must show more discipline.
At least 4,500 people in France have contracted the virus, double from 72 hours ago.
Canadians are being urged to avoid non-essential travel. New restrictions may be imposed with little warning. Global Affairs Canada posted on its travel advisory website. Your travel plans may be severely disrupted and you may be forced to remain outside of Canada longer than expected.
Norway will shut all airports, ports and border crossings, calling in the army to help enforce what appears to be the nation's closure to the outside world, Prime Minister Erna Solberg announced. The nation may also seek infection control gear from China. Countries around Europe, from Spain to Russia, are announcing measures to restrict the movement of people both inside and outside their nations.
The Food and Drug Administration is encouraging licensed pharmacists and physicians to make their own batches of hand sanitizer to combat widespread shortages. The agency is worried that homemade concoctions are not as safe to use as what pharmacists and doctors could make, using high-quality ingredients and at least 60% alcohol.
Hand sanitizer has mostly disappeared from physical stores around the nation as well as from most online retailers.
Alitalia said it will immediately require all passengers to wear facial masks on board flights. The masks must be provided by the passengers themselves, a difficulty given the shortage in Italy, the epicenter of the coronavirus outside of China. The locked-down nation announced another 175 deaths on Saturday, for a total of 1,441 dead. The total cases rose to 21,157.
New York City's hospitals, among the best in the world, may still not be ready for the coronavirus outbreak, according to many healthcare experts. We are not prepared to deal with a rapid and severe surge of patients, we're just not, said Christopher M. Tedeschi, a longtime emergency physician and assistant professor at the Columbia University Medical Center. New York City reported its first coronavirus death, an 82-year-old woman with respiratory illness, Governor Andrew M. Cuomo said.
President Donald Trump said he took a coronavirus test and noted travel will be banned from the UK and Ireland. The rest of Europe falls under an essential no-entry policy announced last week.
Trump said he took the virus test on Friday night, and had his temperature taken early Saturday before appearing at a White House news conference. His temperature was totally normal, he said as he left the briefing room.
He said he expects results back in a day or two.
The U.S. added Great Britain and Ireland to its current international travel ban, effective late Monday. U.S. citizens flying home will still be able to enter, but will be checked at one of 13 airports, and if they show symptoms of the virus will be asked to self-quarantine for 14 days, Vice President Mike Pence said.
The White House is now checking the temperatures of anyone coming in close contact with President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence, a deputy press secretary said.
The moves are being made out of an abundance of caution, Judd Deere said in an emailed statement.
Trump on Friday said he, most likely, will be tested fairly soon, after a Mar-a-Lago meeting last weekend with several people, including members of an official delegation from Brazil, who later fell ill.
Belgium is telling citizens not to travel abroad and warned that the risk of being stranded is very high. The Foreign Ministry said it can't guarantee travelers will be able to return home as countries around the world start to close borders.
Brune Poisson, France's junior environment minister, tested positive for the coronavirus, AFP reported, citing the minister's office.
Casinos in Massachusetts and Illinois are closing for at least 2 weeks in response to the outbreak. In Portugal, casino operator Estoril Sol SGPS SA said it would shut its 3 properties.
Switzerland is looking into drive-through tests, an approach already used in other countries, Interior Minister Alain Berset said in a radio interview.
The number of UK deaths from the outbreak rose by 10 in the past 24 hours to a total of 21. The number of confirmed cases rose to 1,140 on Saturday, from 798 the day before.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is considering a ban on large public gatherings, which could come into force next weekend, an official said. He is under pressure from some medics and politicians to take a more aggressive approach to fighting the virus.
New York reported 100 new cases, pushing the total to 524, and Governor Andrew Cuomo said accelerated testing will lead to a rapid rise in total infections. An 82-year-old woman with a respiratory illness died in New York City, the state's first COVID-19 fatality.
A drive-through testing facility in New Rochelle worked very well, and another center will open on Long Island next week, Cuomo said.
With assistance by Steve Guyman.